In this lesson, we're going to learn how to make our first Java program. Now, to start off your Java program in JGrasp, you go to File, New, Java. That opens up a new Java file. Now, before we start actually coding our Java program, there's a couple of things that are important to know. One is Java is an object-oriented programming language, which means that any program that you create in Java is made up of objects. Now, objects are tiny little program segments that fit together, and many little objects put together form a component, and components form applications. Think about a car engine. If you look at a car engine, for example, it's made up of tiny objects like spark plugs and things, and these objects put together form components, and all the components of the engine fit together to form the engine itself, which is in turn a component or a part of the car, the entire car. Now, in Java, we use objects, and a template to make an object is a class. So we always start off with a class, and the class determines what the object will look like. So we start off our Java programs. You may wonder, why is it when we are creating a Java program, we always see something like this, public class. Now, the class, it indicates that this is a programming segment. This is a tiny program segment in your Java program. You cannot create code in Java without creating classes. And the public keyword means that this class is available, is accessible to other classes in the same package, within this component and in other components. And every class needs to have a name. So we're going to call this class hello. And a class always starts with a curly brace and ends with a curly brace. So there we have it. That's our first Java program. Now, of course, this program does absolutely nothing. It's just a shell, an empty shell of a Java program. It's an empty shell of a class which has a public scope, meaning it's viewable and accessible to other classes in the same package as well as in other packages. And this program's name is hello. Now, what we need to do is, and this is a Java convention, this is very, very important. A program or a class called hello must always be stored in a file called hello. And remember, Java is case sensitive. So in other words, as far as Java is concerned, there's a big difference between uppercase H and a lowercase h. So a class that's named with an uppercase H must be stored in a file with an uppercase H. Let's save this file. Click on save, and JGrasp gives you an indication that this must be the name of your file. So it's automatically named your file because it's picked up the name of your class. Very well, we'll leave it at that, and you'll see on the side in the navigator window that my class has been created, class hello. Now, the next thing that any program needs is a starting point. Where does the starting of the execution of your code take place? Now, in a Java program, the starting point is the main method. The main method, you can say, is like the key to the car. It's what gets everything started. It's what bootstraps your application. So we create a main method. Now, it's good practice in Java and in other programming languages to indent your code. Now, how indentation works is that the child object or the child lines of code are always indented further away from the margin as the parent. So let's take, for example, my main method. I'm going to type it out. Public static void main. Alright, so if you look at my main method, it's a child of the hello class. In other words, it belongs inside hello class, right? So hello class begins there and ends there, and as you can see, it's against the margin. But the main method, because it fits inside the hello class, it's indented one tab away from the margin. Okay, now let's look at the main method. A main method is always public. Now again, public means that it's accessible from within this class and from other classes. Static, meaning it's a static method. We'll describe static methods in another lesson. Void means that this method doesn't return any data to the methods that are calling it, and obviously the name of this method is main. Now the main method takes some command line arguments, Alright, it takes in a string array. This indicates that there's a string array. If you don't understand this too well, don't worry about it. Just understand that we need to put this in. Now take note that the word string is with an uppercase S. Now there's a confusion among newbie Java developers that when do we use uppercase and when do we use lowercase. I mean, if you look at the name of the method main, it's lowercase. The name of the class is uppercase, args is lowercase. We'll explain all of that shortly. Okay, so now we have our main method. We have our class, we have the main method. Now the main method, as I explained, is the method that's going to bootstrap the entire application, is the entry point of your application. Once we have the main method, we can now begin to put our code within the main method. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a simple application that displays a box in the middle of the screen that simply says hello. Now let's create that box. Now you'll notice there's a lot of uppercase and lowercase letters happening here. You need to ensure that your code that you're typing is exactly as it is on the screen. Alright, so what's happening here is that we're going to display a J option pane. Now a J option pane, you know, when you're working with a program and you find that the program has a nice screen and that screen has buttons and input fields. Now those are in Java what you call J option panes. And one type of J option pane is a message dialog. It's a tiny little box, as you'll see shortly, that just simply displays a message and has a button below it. So we use this method to call that box, and we populate that box with this text. Now the null here, we'll leave it like that for now. I'll explain to you later what it actually means. And the actual text that's going to be displayed in the message dialog is output after the comma, and as you can see, it's in double quotes. It always has to be in double quotes. Alright, now the J option pane is a special package that's built into Java. It does not come into our classes automatically. We have to actually say to Java that I'm going to use J option pane. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some space at the top of my code above the class declaration, and I'm going to use the import statement. Now the import statement brings something into your code. Alright, now this is one of the beauties of the Java language. It only gives you from the outset exactly what you need, the bare bones essentials of what you need. Anything over and above you have to import. So we're going to import a package, a Java package. You can think of a Java package as a small a component that you're going to need. So this package is called javax.swing.joptionPane. Alright, so this is, you can say, a toolbox, and this toolbox is what will enable us to output our message dialog box. Alright, so once you've typed out your code, the first thing you need to do is to save it. You can use the Control S on your keyboard, or the Command S if you got an Apple machine, and then you compile it. You compile your code by clicking on the green square. Once you compile your code, you look at the output box at the bottom here. If there are any errors in your code, the errors will be displayed here. Now as you can see, it started off my code with the blue open bracket, and it finished off there. So jgrasp exec -g hello.java operation complete. When you see operation complete and nothing in between, you know your code has been compiled successfully. There haven't been any errors. Now once you compile your code, you run your code by clicking on the little running man. So you run. It takes a few seconds sometimes, and there we have it. Our little J option pane show message dialog with the text hello inside. Once you've looked at it and satisfied yourself, happy that you have made your first Java program, you click on the OK button and it disappears. If you want it to reappear, you simply run your program again, and the word hello appears. Now we can make a variation of this by changing the text. So we go back into our code and we modify the code to add the word everyone, couple of exclamation marks, compile. Now when you compile your code, it saves automatically and then we run it. There we go. So the text is changed. Now you've written your first Java program.